In John chapter 2, verse 17, it says, His disciples remembered that it was written, the zeal for your house will consume me. Zeal of thine house had consumed me, another translation. And I would like to look at this subject of being zealous for the church. Okay? In Matthew 16:18, it reads, I also say to you that you are Peter, and upon this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overpower it. Now, from the first verse that we read to the second verse that we read, you can see the zeal that was involved in building the church. Jesus was very zealous about us. Now, when I talk about the church, I'm not talking about just the local church. I'm talking about the body of Christ. I'm talking about the universal church. Now, we talk about fullness of the Spirit or baptism of the Holy Spirit in our last study. So let's look at this subject briefly. Now, the word for zeal, when you say you are zealous over something, it's the same word for jealousy. Don't raise your hands, but have you ever been jealous? Now, most of you will know what that means. Zeal or jealousy is sometimes illogical. It is a very strong emotion, but here, it is a very spiritual thing also. Now, that zeal or jealousy is really consuming. It even defies logic. The same word is used for envy. Envy is also very consuming. It defies logic. And it is the same word that was used for the zeal that Jesus has for the church. And I think that the same zeal that consumed Jesus should also consume us. Now, I don't know that many people who has this kind of zeal for the church. Paul perhaps displayed the same thing in terms of Israel. Moses displayed the same thing in terms of Israel also. Because Moses was arguing with God, he said, when God says, I will blot their names out of my book. And Moses said, no, you remove my name, keep their name in. And then Paul puts it in Romans, he said, I'd rather be accursed if it will guarantee that the nation of Israel will make it to heaven. Now that is zeal. And that zeal, according to Jesus, was in his heart in terms of the temple. That zeal also is a manifestation of the love of Christ. Jealousy is a natural result of love. When it's not coming out of love, it becomes violent. It becomes rage. Or sometimes it can switch easily into hatred. You know? Remember Amnon, after raping Tamar, that love that consumed him suddenly turned into hatred. And so he sent Tamar out after raping her. And so that is the worldly thing. And so a jealousy in a fleshly term or carnal term can immediately turn into anger. And so look at the manifestation of this zeal or the love of Christ for the church. It is demonstrated in his teachings or on his cross, the blood-soaked cross. You know, it's not, oh, I'm very zealous, let's have a cup of tea or a happy coffee hour. No, this is beyond that. When a person is truly zealous over something, he's willing to give away or give out everything for this sake. Now we are children of God. If you will look at, for example, Matthew chapter 1, the beginning of the Gospels of Jesus Christ, Matthew chapter 1. In Matthew chapter 1, what is the key word? If you are reading King James Version. What's the key word for Matthew chapter 1? If you are reading from the King James Version. Huh? What's the key word? Come on, that's Matthew chapter 1. Starts with letter B. Huh? Begat. That's the key word, begat. Yeah. Or uh, gave birth to. When I first read that, I was wondering how come and Abraham begat Isaac, Isaac begat Jacob. You know, I was not familiar with the Old English, so you have to look it up at the dictionary, and it turned out they fathered or gave birth to somebody. That dominated chapter 1 of Matthew. And it's basically giving us the lineage of Jesus Christ. It brought us back to the Old Testament because you're talking about Old Testament figures. Now, if we know the Old Testament, these are relationships. Fathers to sons. From time to time, mothers were mentioned. Now, these are earthly lineage of Jesus Christ or of some people. By the way, does Jesus have earthly lineage? Realistically, does he have earthly lineage? Yes, no? No, yes. True, false? Truths. Well, you see, if you trace the lineage, when it comes to Jesus Christ, it ends like this. Jesus, Son of God. Yeah. But if you look, and you will find that the human race that Jesus became a part of could not father him. That's an amazing thing. Now, you keep that thought in your mind because that has something to do with our new birth and understanding of the depths of the relationship that the people of God should have. Because the human race that Jesus is a part of could not father him. He has to be begotten by the Father. You look also at his genealogy, you look at David, you look at Abraham, you look at all of the kings. I mean, for example, who replaced David? What? Solomon. Who replaced Solomon? Rehoboam. Now supposed to be, who is Rehoboam? What is the name of the mother of Rehoboam? Huh? Naamah, which is not Jewish. It's an Ammonite. So actually, Rehoboam is half-breed. And yet, he inherited the throne of Solomon. So you see, when it comes to a pure breed, to a pure line, it wasn't a pure line. Okay? And thank God. And then you look at the women, the few women mentioned. When you're talking about Rahab, Tamar, Bathsheba, even Ruth. I mean, of course, Sarah was there. But you look at Rahab. What was she? A prostitute. Tamar. What was she? Huh? She slept with her father-in-law. What about Ruth? What about Bathsheba? I mean, she was raped. What about Ruth? A Moabitess, right? And she was an ungodly woman to begin with. So the human genealogy is something that is not very attractive. Now, we go to this pedigree of Jesus, and because I think right now, we are equating the church or the family of God with our human pedigree. And sometimes we have certain pride regarding our human pedigree. I can't help but especially among Filipinos, we say, oh, kilala ko yan. I used to tell my kids, I think it was John who told these teachers, because I used to tell him that my great-great-grandfather is Lapu-Lapu, you know, the first hero of the and he believed it, you know. And I think he told his teacher or something like that. So I have to retract, you know, and repent. But we normally quote people's names to put weight on our identity and who we are. Yeah. So the Jews are good at that. Paul talks about endless genealogies. Jesus, as I said, it turned out was a son of a race that could not father him. Meaning, only God the Father could begot him. And meaning, Jesus does not owe this world anything. Okay? Because there is no human blood worthy to flow in his vein. Technically, it was the blood of God, so to speak. So what do we see from this genealogy? We see all the disappointments of the fathers to their sons. We see all the disappointments of the sons to their fathers. Can you imagine if you are Solomon replacing David? And I think Solomon is something like fourth or fifth in line. And your mother is Bathsheba. And so his brother really wanted him out. But Solomon will not be somebody who will be very proud of his pedigree on the mother's side. And even on the father's side, because, you know, David did bad on that thing. And so if you look at all of that, you will have heartaches. And sometimes when we look at our past, even our family line, you will have heartaches. This is what I have, this is what I have. And this is what you see in Matthew chapter 1. Heartaches after heartaches after heartaches. And then came Jesus. What did Jesus give you? Pure joy. You see. And that is the big difference. In Isaiah chapter 9 verse 6, it says, For a child will be born to us. A son will be given to us. And the government will rest on his shoulders. And his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, Prince of Peace. So the birth of Jesus is a new beginning. It's pure joy. This is what new birth is. All things are passed away. Now, if Jesus was born in a race that could not begot him, no human pedigree, so to speak, on the father's side. The same thing with us, our new birth is of no human origin. Technically, because of our likeness with Jesus Christ in terms of new birth, we owe this world nothing. Because Jesus, the Bible says, all things have become new. In the mind of God and in our spirits, we owe this world nothing. Because our pedigree is of God. What do we do then? What we do is we begin to focus if my tie-up is no longer on human pedigree, that means my biggest bond is on my godly pedigree. And that is on Jesus Christ. Now, Jesus Christ doesn't owe this world anything. We don't owe this world anything. And this is where the church is coming from. It is not from man nor of man. It is not bound by any human relationships. And this is where the zeal of Jesus is that we read. That's why, now remember, Mary was a godly woman. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb. You know, the Catholics turn it into a prayer when it's actually a greeting that the angel addressed Mary with. And the Catholics turn it into a prayer. And because Mary heard with his brothers and sisters that Jesus was casting out demons, healing the sick, and teaching, they went after him in Mark. And the Bible says that they thought he was beside himself, that he was crazy. And so they were trying to fetch him. He was inside the house in Capernaum, in Nazareth, teaching, and they were trying to fetch him, or Capernaum, sorry. They were trying to fetch him, and Jesus looked at people around him and say, whoever does the will of my Father is my mother, my brothers, and my sisters. That means the zeal had switched. Now, the responsibility is still there. He was very much responsible for his mother. But you will not find that he was concerned for his brothers or sisters. In fact, much more for his sisters. Why? Because they're already old. They have to fend for themselves. He only looked at his mother and said, "Woman, this is your son. Son, this is your mother." But never really left anything for his brothers and sisters. Now that is some kind of a zeal. That is Jesus Christ. And when I was reading this, I said, I never realized the spiritual pedigree is, well, I know for me, my spiritual heritage had become more important to me. I'm telling you, Brother Willie, for example, is closer to me than any of my brothers and sisters. Yeah, I have no fight with them, but really, Brother Willie is, Pastor Kinsey was, before he pulled away from me, but Pastor Kinsey was closer to me than any of my siblings. Yes. And that's just the way it is. I am closer to this house than my earthly family. Yeah. And that is what Jesus displayed. He said, "The zeal of thine house have consumed me." And I believe, well, if you are zealous over your house, and we saw it in human affairs. If you are zealous over your family, you don't want the legacy of that family to be erased. You know, if your family has a business, you want that business to thrive. But what we have to be very careful is this, that our zeal for our family overtakes our zeal for the family of God. Because in Jesus Christ, his zeal for the house of God is what was mentioned. It is what dominated him, considering that because of who he is, his brothers and sisters will receive some kind of persecution. Okay? So let's understand what this church, why is Jesus so zealous about his family? Pastor Jin Ho's last name is Kim. Kim is very popular in Korea. You will find patriots and traitors. The last name is Kim. Yeah. The dictator from North Korea is Kim. So at one time, I tried to tease Pastor Jin about this. Hey, is that your relative out there? And he actually can trace. And he was telling me about a Kim who is a general, who was a patriot, and then another Kim who is a traitor. And Pastor Jin is not very fond of the traitor sign, so to speak. I mean, he's not very fond of Kim Jong-un, you know. But if your last name is popular, we tend to be aggressively promoting it. But if it brings shame, we want to shy away from it. But Jesus was not emphasizing that. It's the seal of the house of God. So you begin to understand why Marcos did the Elordes a lot of favor. The Elorde boxing stadium, I mean, he was going bankrupt. But Marcos will always bail Elorde out. Bail him out. And I was told that Marcos was asked by his friends, "Why do you always bail out Flash Elorde?" He was a bad business person, you know. A great boxer, but a bad business person. And Marcos would say, "Well, because Elorde brought honor to our country. He's a national treasure. We cannot allow that honor to go down the drain because of bankruptcy." So he would always bail out Elorde. Just always bail him out. You see. Perhaps if your family is the inventor of the gunpowder or paper or computer, maybe you would want to preserve that. But even with that legacy, in Jesus Christ, his seal was on the house of God. So what is it about the church? Well, let's begin to review as to what it is not. You know, I was thinking about how we live and how we treat the church or how we look at the church. The church is not a group of a few people that is satisfied with their own spirituality and keep their own company. A church is not, oh, I'm looking for people like me or like this. We all love missions or we all love singing. So you choose a group of people like you and say, well, this is my group. That's not the church. That is not the church. A group of cliques. Because I think we use the term where two or three are gathered together in my name inappropriately. And I explain to you what that means. It is also, you observe also, the church sometimes, as understood, is like a group, a junta. You don't like what's happening, you move out until your will is enforced. So it becomes like an opposition that, well, I disagree with this government, and so I'm going to be an opposition party. We think that is the church. No, that's government, that's democracy, it's not the church. The church is not supposed to be like that. Or sometimes, I think we look at the church as like a stock company. Think about it. We tell, you want to be blessed? We are the group of the blessed. If you want your debts paid, bodies healed, which are all blessings of God, like we are a stock for profit company, that we have the exclusive claim to blessings. That's why we become an exclusive group. You know, if you think about it also, some churches come like packages. We have church that comes in 5-minute packages, 10-minute packages, 30-minute packages. Like this is, you know what is, we are doing fundraising right now because of the building in the Philippines. You know how so much of it is packaging. Yeah. We look at pictures, we look at what we have done, and we package it so that we can present it to people so that they will know who we are. And the church has been like that. Look at what we do now. If we belong to a church, what do we have in the church? I think one Filipino in the local newspaper is advertising. They thought our come on is free lunch. So if you look at, was it Via Times or Philippine Daily, something like that, it says free lunch. Because they thought our come on is free lunch. It's a packaging. That's why, that's how we, oh, you want the word, come to our church. Why isn't it supposed that all churches are supposed to have the word? You want great worship, come to our church. Isn't it supposed that all churches are supposed to have great worship? Or you want mission, you come to our church. Is it not supposed to be that all churches should have missions? You know, we have great cooks. I think if we can build a Lion's Heart restaurant, it will be the best, you know. But we should not be known for our food, although it's not bad to have good food. But that has become what the church is, like packages. So technically, actually, if you look at churches, most churches, and maybe it will include us, most churches fail to satisfy what a church is intended to be. I remember a family was saying goodbye to us, and the parents, we asked the parents, why are you leaving? Is there something that we have done that we should correct? Oh, no, Pastor. I said, please, I said, you will not be leaving for no reason. That will be odd. Then finally they got to confess. They said, well, because our son is not learning anything from the youth, from Sister Anne. And I said, oh, really? I'm sorry, I said. And then I think they realized what they said. They immediately backed off and said, oh, no, 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 no. Sister Ann is teaching well. I said, no, don't apologize. I said, if he's not learning anything from Sister Ann, I said, then he's not. I said, because if you try to cover it up, then it will not help my wife. So I said, where are you living? And they said, oh, we're moving there because it has Nintendo. It has all of this. The rooms have these games. I said, really? Yeah, it really my kids get attracted to it. So I said immediately after it was told, they told me, I said, well, I can't compete with that. I said, because we have no Nintendo room here. We have no Xbox room or anything like that. I mean, even if you donate Xbox, we don't have a room for that, you know. But I'm thinking about that. That's how we package the church now. You know, we package. Is that where the zeal of Jesus was invested in? For example, if our church is great in ministering to the youth because we have all of these gadgets, will Jesus be zealous for that? Will Jesus be willing to die and say, the zeal of that house with Nintendo games had consumed me. I'm willing to die for that. You come to think about there's got to be something more than the church that Jesus is zealous for. So, there are three necessary substance for a church. And you know these words, we use it a lot. Number one is love, or we call it agape. Second one is fellowship, or we call it koinonia. And the third one is faithfulness. We call it pistos. So agape is a fervent love. When we talk about agape, we always talk about we love God. Nobody will contest that if you say, well, I love God. But actually, in a church, the aspect of agape is fervent love for one another. It's more than brotherly love. It's fervent love for one another. Koinonia is fellowship. And of course, pistos is the call to be faithful, or the ingredient of faithfulness. So let's take this one by one. As I told you, agape is basically, people understand it as love of God. But it's also fervent love for one another, or fervent love, a consuming love for the members of the community. Like marriage, you cannot, unless you are Dennis Rodman, who married himself. Remember that? He married himself in New York. You cannot marry yourself. The church is like marriage. You cannot do marriage on your own. Okay? You cannot do marriage on your own. Look, in marriage, we endure all things. We work together. In church, it's the same. We do all things together. We involve in all things. You cannot do marriage alone. You have to. When I'm very upset in the house, I will say something that can't be followed. Yeah. Like, have you parents give instructions, and instead of obedience, what you get are reasoning and questioning. So sometimes I'll just tell, guys, I'm giving an order. Please stop thinking. I'll say that. Stop thinking. Just do something. Just do what I'm telling you to do. Just stop thinking. Well, that's easier said than done. Because whether you like it or not, people will continue thinking. But that's doing family. Doing family is clashing with members of the family, having different opinions and ideas. But that's what doing family is. It's like marriage. You can't do it on your own. We adapt. Sometimes what we do is we adapt some groups of believers to love, because that's just the way it is. The church growth says if you know 5 people in the church, it is enough for you to return. Just 5 people. no matter how gigantic the church is, if you know 5 people, it gives you enough reason to return. Because it's like it's like marriage or human body or anything else. You know, you see a couple fighting all the time. Why do you stick it out to each other? And they will perhaps name 1 or 2 reasons. Sometimes, sad to say, oh, because of the kids. And that's the only reason. We are keeping this marriage together because of the kids. But the kids became the reason why they continue to do family together or do marriage together. Now it becomes sad though, because when the kids grow up, what do? Especially when they leave the house. You know. But the church is like that. You are not looking for a place where everything that you want and everything that you need is. But there are some things there that you can agree with, and that's what you do. In 1 Corinthians 13, love was defined. I'll tell you this: love or church is not for hermits. We have people who claim this their church, but they only show up from time to time. You know, we have a person who claimed that this is their church, but every time he comes here, he will talk to me and say, "The Lord told me to come here." And I will always, sometimes I will avoid the Lord. The Lord doesn't need to tell you to come here. You know, where are you going tonight after the church? Where are you guys going? Does the Lord need to tell you to go home? It's the only place you have to go. Because that's your house. That's where your bed is. That's where your address is. It's a place where you are located, where it's a reference point for people to find you. So you don't say, "Lord, shall I go home tonight?" No, you just go home. And you know, you could be fighting with the members of that family. You still have to go home. You don't say, "Well, I'm fighting with my wife. I'm not going to go home tonight." You will make it bigger. And really, the home, when you do family, when you do marriage, you are forced to confront things. You are really forced to confront things. What, are you going to stay in a hotel? And you begin to say, "Whoa, it's very expensive." And the credit card that you're using, it's joint. So the wife or the husband will know. The more problem you produce. Family confronts us to confront the things. Church is the same way. That's why 1 Corinthians 13 was written for the church, not for hermits. You cannot be some people, they want to isolate themselves. You say jump, they sit down. I mean, have you ever been part of the group leader say something, and there's always this person who wants to display opposition, you know, and just do everything opposite. Just do it. DJ and I are joking because my wife loves experimenting. If she cooks something that I like, she changes it. I mean, I don't like pasta. But she cooked a spicy spaghetti one time, and it was good. So I love it. I said, "Ann, I like this pasta." Guess what she did? She changed it. Yeah. So now DJ and I, if my wife cooks something and she asks me, "How is it?" "Oh, I don't like it." You know, we keep eating it, but I don't like it. Don't do it anymore, because she will maintain the formula. That's our joke, you know. But it forces you to act, to do something. That's 1 Corinthians 13. The context of 1 Corinthians 13 is not on a personal level. It's on a church level. Paul is not addressing one individual and say, "Sister or brother, this is love." No, he was addressing a church that is problematic, a church that is full of division, a church that is fragmenting. And that is when he quoted 1 Corinthians 13. It was not addressed to an individual. So that's the first thing. There has to be this kind of, it's doing things together. That's the church. Koinonia, second word, fellowship. In the New Testament, Peter, James, and John was involved in what business? Fishing business. They own boats. They have workers. So it's a fellowship. It's a koinonos. Their fishing brings them mutual profit. Now, this is the first thing is love. Second is their being together brings mutual profit. That's why among business partners don't necessarily like each other. Like a lot of, I don't know how much of the news you will listen to. If you listen to the news, it seems like a lot of people don't like Trump. But believe me, the business community likes what he's doing regarding to making money. The Christmas sale in this country rose to 5.1%, $850 billion. That's the biggest in a long time. Yeah, in a long time. So, yeah, you have business. Wall Street had donated more to the Democrats than to the Republicans in the midterm election. Believe me, they will be lying if they will tell you that they don't like the profit that they're making. You see? But people sometimes stick together because of mutual profit. That's fellowship. It's not perfection, it's a fellowship. A fellowship is not shaking hands. It's doing something together because it profits you together. That's why when a member of the church says, I don't have to go to church, I can worship God on my own, there is no fellowship there. There is no koinonia. You're not doing things that will bring mutual profit. For example, we are doing missions. Who is this? Brother Noli was in the house the other night. Man, he was very excited regarding raising money for the building in the Philippines. He was telling me that he used Facebook to generate support, and he said his phone will give him a signal, and one of his friends says, okay, I'll give $100. And he will go to the room with his wife. He said, and I'll dance and rejoice. I'm very happy. He said, this is not for me, this is for the church. You see, it's doing something to it. That's fellowship. It brings mutual profit. You know, one person may give $50, one person may give $100, $1,000, but put it all together, what is it? It's a blessing center in the Philippines. And the person who gave $1 cannot say, I have no part in that. And the person who gave $1,000 cannot say, without me it will not be finished. No, nobody can say that. Because that's what fellowship is. You bring people together and there is a mutual profit. Our mutual profit is we are building our side of the wall. We are doing something that we believe is God's assignment to us. That's our profits. That's the fulfillment of the call. That's the fulfillment of our mission. Okay? What it means is this: these are not freelancers or casual laborers. They are permanent workers. You know, I think we have grown in a democratic system or in a capitalist society. There are freelancing church members. Remember our choir director before? What he told me was, I just want to conduct one choir per week, one practice, and I can do whatever I want for the rest of the time. That means a freelancer. Supposedly there's more money to it, but that's what it is, just a freelancer. Brother Willie told me that some of the pastors and evangelists that he knows in the Philippines is encouraging him to be a motivational speaker and even giving him tips. Saying, Brother Willie, there's more money in a motivational speaker because he charged you a few thousand pesos to attend this meeting. And Brother Willie was telling me that his friends are telling him, and you don't teach long. You just share a little bit of your book, write a book, and then you sell it, and they'll buy it because they attend the conference, and that's how you make money. On my last leg of trip in last meeting, he was very upset. I was in his car, and he was very upset. I said, why are you very upset? He said, because my friend had written another book. And, well, it's in his church. And he wants me to endorse it. I said, then endorse it. And he said, you know what kind of garbage is this? It's just for making money. And he showed me. It's a very small book, something like 23 or 26 pages. Very skinny. And he was selling it for something like 500 pesos. And you know, in each page, it's just one quote. Yeah. In each page, one quote. Like one page, maybe he will quote John 3:16. Second page, another quote from Stalin or Mussolini or something like that. And the 26 pages like that. And I know good that Brother Willie is born again. I think if he's not born again, he'll be cursing all over the place. He said, and he wants me to endorse this. I said, well, that's your friend. He said, that's not the problem. The problem is he's one of our pastors. I said, you see, that's what happened. Freelancing. Well, a koinonia, the concept of koinonia is there is no freelancing. You are part of the business. You're part of the boat business. You're a fishing crew. And that is your business. That's your full-time work. That's your dedication. Okay? So, what it is telling us is it requires partnership. And that's why Paul said we become partners in the gospel. To have a spiritual home is more than having a temporary religious address. One of the things I found out when I was being interviewed by INS, now it's Homeland Security, for permanent residency, is my address. They want to make sure that you have an address. My old address is Nina and Barry. It's a corner house. And so the inspector was telling me, how come you have two addresses? And I could not answer. Because the address is Nina. And he said, well, the other address in the record of the computer is Barry. How come you have two addresses? And I have no answer. But I have a good lawyer. Oh, so the lawyer answered, oh, that's stupid. That's what he used. Yeah, that's stupid. I said, don't mind them, Reverend, he said. And he looked at the inspector and says, look at the address. Why it is two addresses? He said, because it's a corner house. One is Barry, one is Nina. So it has two addresses. I still couldn't understand it. And the inspector just simply said, oh, well, it turned out the house is Barry and the church is Nina. Yeah, and because you can't have two addresses. Because it has a house. The house is actually Barry and the other is Nina or something like that. And so it is one property. The house has a different address because it's the second house from the corner. So it can't be the corner. And so my lawyer just simply said, that's just stupid. It's just the way, look at the map. And so it was erased. Why? Because we like permanent address. We don't actually, even among the FBIs, we don't actually like people who keeps moving around. You begin to wonder, why are they moving around all the time? Apartment here in 3 months, another apartment in 2 months. Why? Do they have a problem with paying rent? Are they being kicked out? And they'll begin the investigation. You see? Because if you are going to build something of mutual interest and build a business, you have to stick to it. There has to, what I've learned from recent market behaviors is this. When the market goes down, the analysts on television will say, don't sell your stocks. Don't sell it. Because this is the best time to make money by not selling the stocks, unless it's going bankrupt. He said, don't sell it because it will rise up. You sell it when it's going up, but you don't sell it right now. And they say that those who stick to it are those who make money. So, church membership is not also like renting a board and lodging house. My favorite hotel, whenever I travel in the U.S., is Candlewood Suites. Marriott has the same setup. And the reason why I like Candlewood Suites is because it has a kitchen, it has a dining place, you can bring your food, you can cook. And if you don't want them to clean your room, they will not clean it. You have to request it, you see. And so I like that because I can bring food from the outside. I'll shop at Walmart, bring my food, and they have stove, they have utensils. So, I don't cook. I heat up canned goods. But it saves you a lot of money. But it's like a board and lodging house. Church is not a board and lodging house. Why? In a board and lodging house, my wife, where was it? It was in the Gupan. We were in this Linux hotel, very close to our site. My wife on the first hour we went in there, she started coughing. It turned out the room is very dusty. So we immediately called the front desk and we were transferred. Oh, I forgot what hotel was that. Yeah, wherever it was. It's at my hotel. So we moved to a different room right away because she was coughing. And then immediately we are asking the question, is there another hotel where we can rent next time? Because her health is very important. You know why? Because that is a room and board. That's board and lodging. That's not a church. In a hotel, if there's something that you don't like, you look for another hotel. Because people know you don't stay for 3 years in a hotel. It's a 1 day, it's a 2 days, it's a 3 days. And you want to leave right away because you are counting money. Very expensive. Church is not like that. But we have treated the church like that. Like we look at the church and say, I don't like the food anymore. I don't like this anymore. I'm moving to the church next. No, that's not. That's not the church. Your house is not something that you sell because you have to travel 1 hour from work. You don't just sell a house that quick. And you cannot just be approved. You say, well, this is where I live. It's going to take 1 hour. The parking is expensive, so maybe I'll take a train. But you don't say, I'll change the house. My concern is we lack so much. I have no zeal for Candlewood Suites. All I want is a place where I can buy groceries from Walmart and bring it to the room so I can get out of there. When I leave the hotel, I don't even clean it up. I put the garbage in the garbage bin. I don't clean it up. I don't do the bed. I don't do any of those things. That's not my house. Well, even in my house, I don't do that. Yeah. But because I'm just in and out. But in the house, if you care for your house, you clean it. You don't say, well, my house is full of garbage. I'm not going home. Well, where are you going to go? Well, there's a lot of garbage in my house. I go there every day. I stay in that house. I try to clean my little space as much as I can, but I stay in that thing. Yeah. Church is like that. It's not a room and board. But I think in a room and board, if you are no longer comfortable, you transfer hotels. But the church is not like that. And what happened is, we now look for churches where we are most comfortable. You see, I told you that story in Laguna, wherein churches left, lots of churches because of this. Well, the church is New Life actually. They bought this market mini mall in Laguna, fully air conditioned, and so everybody went there. And the pastors look at me and says, we don't mind, thank God it's successful, but that's our offering, that's our tithes. I only have 30 members, I have 50 members, now I have 20, and it's not enough to pay me. Well, what is it? It's air conditioned, it's comfort, yeah. And the church has become like that. Well, the third substance, so first one is agape, second is fellowship. Third is pistos or faithfulness. This is not just a faith, this is faithfulness. Church is not like a convenience store in your neighborhood that you tolerate until you can drive. For example, if you move to a neighborhood and there is a convenience store 1 block away, you don't know how to drive, you don't have a car, and so you tolerate. Hey, where did you get your lunch this noontime? Oh, in that convenience store. And we say, the food is bad, but I have no car. I have no. So you're just tolerating it. There is really no faithfulness. So the moment you have a car and you can drive, you whisk away. You don't even consider that the convenience store stays. There's a convenience store here in Edgebrook. It's called Happy Foods. If you will look at that store, there is no reason for that store to survive. Yeah. There's no reason for that store to survive. Why? Because you have Walmart, you have all kinds of crazy stuff just a couple of blocks away in all directions. You know, the reason why that store thrives is because the community had considered it their own. It's a little bit more expensive, but the community embraced it as their own. They know the owner. You walk in there, I mean, Anne walks in there all the time before when she was dropping off the kids, and the lady in the register will say, you have not been here last week. You know, they know each other. So what happened there is, it was embraced by the community. Even if it's a little bit more expensive, it's ours. So let's embrace it, let's support it. And they rally around it, you know. So what does it mean? Well, faithfulness. Faithfulness does not avoid responsibilities. So, if you embrace responsibilities, that's faithfulness. Faithfulness or pistos makes churches possible. You know, sometimes we tend to have false humility. And there's a brigade of believers who say, if I go, you won't miss me. Yeah. You know, I'll just live in. Nobody will miss me. And sometimes they say, you won't miss me, because they actually rely on the others to do the responsibility, to be responsible. Hey, can you please volunteer? Oh, what do you want me to do? Oh, you're a good cook. Oh, who else is coming? Oh, this is coming. Oh, you don't need me there. You have 5 great cooks already. You don't need me there. That's not church. Church, you don't say that. You go in there. Amazing when your kids started growing up, and they have their own specialty in cooking. You know, James can cook this. I don't know what DJ's specialty is. You have no specialty, right? I think before you used to make brownies. No more. Yeah. And everybody encourages one another. You do this. We say, Joseph, you grill. But Joseph can do more. Oh, what I like for Joseph to do is his ice cream. But he became like his mother. Because I like it, he stopped making it, you know. But everybody, you don't say, stop cooking. Other people can cook. We begin to enjoy each other's contribution. And that's a responsibility. So what are we missing? We are linked to our assembly of believers. We have to understand there's a linkage that should not be broken. When you feel that you are strong, it's not a time for you to say, I can do it on my own. When you feel you are strong, faithfulness or responsibility says, then I ought to carry another person's burden. Okay, that's why you carry one another's burden. When you say, well, I'm very weak. I cannot really do anything right now. I'm weak. That's not the time to live also. It's a time to say, I need help from my brothers. You know, my family is adjusting because people are studying and leaving, and so I find that James, by default, is having more responsibilities. You know, because John forsakes his responsibilities, DJ forsakes her responsibilities, and Joseph is forsaking some of his responsibilities because of school. They're busy out there. So I find James picking up some slacks. And I find my wife doing more. Yeah. But that's responsibility. You- That's being a family. You know. I think I'm the only one who do less. You know. But that's what family is. When you feel you are very strong, you don't say, I'm going to look for a company of strong men now. I'm a special quality, I'm strong, so I need to be among the strong ones. If you think you can sing well, you don't say, I'm going to look now for a place where my musical talent is going to be used more. Well, that's not church. Church is there will always, it's like a family, there are weak points and there are strong points. When you find the weak points, the strong points compensate. When you find weak points, you supplement that. You know, bound by the common faith in Jesus. And this is when we weep with those who weep. We don't send them weeping all on their own. Well, I'm not among the weepers, you know. You find fellow weepers. You weep together. You weep. You rejoice among. Oh, you look very happy. What is it? I would like to rejoice with you. Oh, no, you have no faith. I'll keep the joy to myself. That's why, for example, we have testimony times. That's why testimony times is a time you want people to rejoice with you, not to weep with you, you know. Weeping and rejoicing requires personal relationship. Now, Moses in the Old Testament, in spite of his princely upbringing, the Bible says he chose to suffer affliction with the people of God. So did Jesus, who being in the form of God, became a man. That's fellowship. That's faithfulness. These are three main ingredients. And I think as we face another year of our existence, because I think we started our services on January. And we're going to have another anniversary. This is going to be what, the 24th anniversary? I don't even know how long. We have been sometimes. I don't even know the date we started. But we celebrate on January, our anniversary. But that is a call for these three qualities in our church. A call for love, fellowship, and faithfulness. Bishop Ray, the last time he was here in my office, was telling me something very urgent. He's been minister for over 60 years. He kept repeating this to me. He said, Pastor said, you have to tell the people. I said, what? They cannot quit the church. I said, yeah, I tell them that. You can't quit church. He said, look, I have been a pastor for so many years. He said, you can't quit church. And he proceeded to explain to me. He said, nothing good happens to those who leave church. And he keeps telling me that. And then I think he mentioned the same thing when he was preaching a little bit. But we were having fellowship, maybe because he's old. You know, maybe his life has been threatened by the last. He kept telling me, you can't quit church. Please tell your people they can't quit church. Because that's love, that's fellowship, that's faithfulness. That's your life support. You know. And we heard of what happened to people, but I think we have to, in this new year, we have to revive what a church is to us, what our roles are. Amen?